Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Want to welcome you to this last segment of this e-conference, the first e-conference we have had under this arrangement with East Africa Child Rights Network. My name is Damon, and I'm the country director of Dwelling Places, an organization in Uganda that works at rescuing, rehabilitating, and resettling children who have run away from home, have been trafficked, generally children who are at risk and are in need of protection. I'm honored this evening to moderate this session where we have the regional bodies, people from African Union Committee on the Welfare and the Rights of the Children, where we have IGAD, and also where we have the former legislator under the Ayala Parliament and the mover of the Counter-Trafficking in Persons Bill at the East African legislative level. And I'm excited that we can have this conversation. I'm well aware that we have listened to the conversation right from 1 o'clock, and now we get to summarize it at the regional level with this conversation. I think I will give opportunity to our panelists to quickly introduce themselves, and I definitely have their profile, and I'll ask them to let us know what we should really be expecting from them. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Sometimes you can end up thinking you're talking to yourself. So I'm going to start with Dr. Musa Chibwana. And I just start by saying that your name crosses between Uganda and Kenya. And definitely we feel you're part of East Africa. Dr. Musa works currently with the African Committee on the welfare and the rights of children. I will not say too much, but I'll ask him to further share more about himself, and also to tell us, from having listened to what members have been sharing, what would you add on? What are your thoughts about what members have been sharing right from the beginning? Dr. Musa.
Thank you so much, Damon, for the opportunity. I'm sorry, colleagues, I'm not able to use video now. I think let me show you why. For some reason, it's showing me like this on the side. So if I continue making my presentation this way, you end up like Honorable is already looking at me like this. I want to avoid that. So I'll remove the video so that it does not become a distraction, and we proceed. Thank you again to the organizers for such an incredible day that we have had. I've been following the conversations. I think it's very rich. We saw NHRIs participating, giving us insights on how they are working on this particular issue. we heard from the legislature, we heard from the judiciary or members in the judiciary or who work with the judiciary on how to deal with this. We also heard from civil society. I think the conversation has been very rich, and I'm excited also to be part of it. As an East African, like Damon is saying, I identify with the region a lot. I think, shall I make my contribution already, Damon?
Yes, you can just go ahead and share with us what you think in terms of the conversation right from the beginning and in your perspective from the committee level.
Yeah, I think coming from the Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, where our mandate, according to Article 42 of the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, is to promote and protect children's rights. We think our weighing in the conversation will not provide as much granular detail compared to what colleagues have been sharing. So you will find that my intervention is mainly lofty, just speaking to the normative frameworks. That's what I mean by being lofty, without really providing the handles of the practicalities of what is happening at the national and regional level. I think let me start by mentioning that the African Union broadly has an aspiration that all Africans should live in dignity and realize their full potential. This finds its expression in Agenda 2063 of the African Union. And in this particular agenda, Aspiration 2 speaks about an integrated continent. The subject matter we are discussing here speaks to this aspiration in one way. Number one, when we're talking about integration of the continent, it means making movement across borders of services, of goods and people to be easier. And of course, there are some who may take this opportunity of opening up of borders to exercise their nefarious intentions. Hence, trafficking may increase. So it's one of the issues that we are observing from the committee's point of view, the opening of the borders through AfTA and what it may mean for children on the continent. Already before AfTA is taking full effect, we are dealing with the challenges which colleagues have already been identifying and been grappling with since this afternoon. So we may need to scale up our efforts in addressing the issue of child trafficking going forward, because the continental integration move will bring with it this particular aspect even more. So that's one of the things. The second aspiration which I want to talk about in Agenda 2063 is Aspiration 4, which speaks about a peaceful and secure Africa. Sometimes trafficking of children happens because there has been a disintegration of systems, structures, and institutions that provide service that protect children. And when that is the case, you will find that children are more susceptible to trafficking than in a stable democratic society. So you find that circumstances where there is no peace, where there is conflict, children are more susceptible to trafficking. And linking Agenda 2063's aspiration for dignity and full realization of potential of its people, including children, is the committee's Agenda 2040. And Aspiration 7 of this agenda speaks about protection of children from all forms of violence, including trafficking. I think at the normative level, we have substantial instruments that we can use, which the African Union has come up with. I'll speak more on the African Charter, Article 29, which speaks about trafficking as well. So what is key, at least from the level of the African Union, is to make sure that the normative standard which is needed is provided. Of course, the current normative standard might have its own limitations. Therefore, we need to make sure that coming from such kind of gatherings and recommendations from such kind of conferences, you inform us on where we can strengthen the normative guidance that we are providing to state parties to ensure that accountability is in place, as well as children are all protected from all forms of violence, including child trafficking. Within the committee, I deal with the issue of conflict. I think I'm just going to raise 3 pertinent issues that complicate this whole issue when we want to respond to issues of conflict. The first is that within the context of conflict, I think East Africa is some of the countries which we can put within this category. Institutions will not be working as much as they should work. I think the earlier presentations were speaking in an ideal scenario where institutions are in existence to ensure for collaboration and coordination, to ensure for evidence gathering and so on. But within a context of conflict, armed conflict especially, the institutions are usually non-existent, and if they're existent, they're very partisan. And such an environment is difficult to ensure that children are protected from trafficking. That's the first thing. The second aspect I want to raise within the conflict setting is the scenario where non-state armed groups have effective control over territory. We know that the African Charter, the high contracting parties to the African Charter on the rights and welfare of the child are state parties. But we are finding interesting dynamics where groups such as El Shabaab has effective control of territory and other armed groups. And in this case, of course, we know that the obligation to ensure respect for children's rights and to ensure protection lies to all member states for children to realize their rights. But we find that non-state armed groups do not sometimes observe the normative standards which intergovernmental organizations such as the UN and the African Union would have set. And that's one of the problems that we have to think through when we're dealing with the issues of child protection, especially in the context of trafficking. How do we ensure accountability and bring non-state armed groups to account within the African context for the violations that happen there, and at least also to have them cooperate with the initiatives that all partners here are talking about? We hear that there is a lot of collaboration that may be happening within countries and across countries, but this works in an ideal scenario. In these peculiar circumstances, we may need to explore how still to protect children who are in the jurisdictions that are controlled effectively by non-state armed groups. Because it's difficult to collaborate with these non-state armed groups, the issue of evidence and data that a colleague Jessica was talking about becomes also difficult. The evidence becomes elusive because you cannot go and do the investigations within those contexts. So data is important. Linked to data is the key aspect of registration of the children. How do we know that this is child trafficking? Because there has been registration to prove that this is a child. When that gateway right has been violated, what we see already is that there's a subsequent violation of other rights, because the gateway right to registration, so that the child can be planned for, can be budgeted for, can be made to be accountable for, that system is not in place. So I think birth registration has to be central, so that when a child crosses one border to the other, there is no dispute about the age of the child or that. Having said that, let me just address or weigh in and reinforce some of the arguments or submissions that have been made by colleagues. I noted of note Jessica's contribution and some of the challenges which they are facing in child trafficking. For example, the collaboration amongst regional economic communities. Acknowledge that this is a conversation for East Africa, but you know, when the traffickers are doing their trafficking, they do not have respect for regionality, to say my cartel runs only in East Africa. The trafficking happens across regional economic communities. Therefore, any collaboration that has to happen in nipping child trafficking in bud should not, whilst it should start one regional economic community such as EAC, should provide for inter-regional economic community collaboration. Because in South, you may find children coming from Ethiopia in Mozambique in transit to South Africa, which means already at a regional level, there has to be collaboration between Southern African Development Community on the one hand and East African Community on the other, including IGAD. So our response is, especially on this particular kind of conversation, which involves a moving target, has to include the various routes that do exist. One of them is making sure that there's a regional economic communities collaboration. I think that if that is missing, you are likely to find that the collection of evidence to see through a matter will not be adequate, because the witnesses or the people in the value chain are all not included, or you nip one side and the other side is still open. So I think that is one of the key issues that has to be addressed. I will still continue on my second point, talking about the regional approach in addressing this issue, to say as we enhance collaboration, inter-country collaboration, there is need to have standard operating procedures. Standard operating procedures which have a standard definition of who a child is. This is a big deal, because from the country of origin, the person may be regarded to as a child, but when they cross the border into the other country, that person is not a child anymore, because of the lack of consistency in definition of a child in national laws. So in trying to come up with standard operating procedures, let's ensure that member states adhere to the normative standard that has been set by the African Union through the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, which is uncompromising in its definition of a child. And the standard operating procedure would then inform all other responses, such as the documentation and the disaggregation of data, for it to be uniform across the regions, across the countries. Because when the disaggregation of data is not uniform, you will find that you may be comparing oranges and apples from one country to the other. So let me conclude by saying addressing child trafficking, like other colleagues have mentioned, is complex because the value chain of it ground. So ensuring accountability is difficult. Therefore, there is need to strengthen the institutions that deliver. I'm glad Veronica was talking about the role of NHRIs in this process. And the travesty, however, was that because of their jurisdiction, they can only work within Kenya. And within Kenya, they're doing a very good job. What about the NHRIs in Sudan, in South Sudan, in the other countries in the region, and on the continent overall? How are they able to ensure accountability of the duty bearers to issues of trafficking? So strengthening the institutions that ensure accountability is important for us, and ensuring that the normative standards that have been provided at the continental level and regional level that protect children in situations of trafficking, they are adhered to. I think it's one of the key roles that civil society can do in this process. I think for now, let me stop here. I can engage further with the participants through question and answer. I hope I stuck to my time. Thank you so much, Dema. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Musa. I think you have really given a good insight, having heard what members shared and what members have brought to the table in terms of the conversation on the prosecution of this vice of trafficking in persons. And you bring in your angle of expertise as a child advocate. I'm trying to look for that right word. Child rights expert. Also, and having known you first, I met you when you were working with the Child Rights Network in Southern Africa, and now at the AU, giving support to the Committee on Issues around child rights and access to information. We also have Shadrach. Shadrach Oyi has joined us. I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly, Oyebo, and he will correct me if I've said it wrong, but just now I've pronounced it the Ugandan way. So in Uganda, it's correct. Probably where you are, it is not correct. But Ugandan will pronounce it well. Shadrach works with IGAD, that's the Intergovernment Authority and Development, and he works specifically with the child health and nutrition. And also, we are having him here to join us to still engage on the conversation on prosecution of victims, prosecution of the perpetrators of this vice, child trafficking in persons in general. And Shadrach, we want to give you opportunity to introduce yourself further and also share with us your comment from the discussions that you had earlier on. What is your take on the position that IGAD has to say concerning trafficking in persons? Shadrach, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Can you hear? I hadn't tried my mic before.
Yes, we can hear you, Shadrach.
Thank you very much, and I think I jetted in very on this webinar, but so far I think I'm hearing very interesting, and thank you very much, organizers. This is really timely, as it were, and I think it's a useful discussion at this time of COVID-19 challenge. Everyone is talking of COVID, so I guess if you if you don't talk of COVID or anything COVID related now, will listen to you. And from the desk that I sit on, people are drinking, eating, I don't know, sleeping, and breathing COVID. It's all COVID. So I sit in Nairobi. As you know, IGAD Secretariat is in Djibouti, but I sit in Nairobi. I sit in a department called Health and Social Development. From my public duty, I'm also the focal point for child protection and child rights. IGAD is at a point right now that we are trying to develop that portfolio, expand it, and streamline the work that we do to be child friendly, to be child focused. We have a lot of programs. We have a lot of advocacy. We have migration program. We have education programs. We have health program. We have refugee targeted programs, and so on. But in IGAD is that all of these are somehow addressing child rights issues, child protection issues, but they are not coordinated. So I have been, myself and my team in Nairobi have been given the huge task of ensuring that this is streamlined and that aspects to do with children, including child rights and issues and child protection issues, are taken streamlined across the board, across IGAD programs, across all the IGAD focus areas and divisions. So we are trying to learn a lot from EAC. I wish my colleague from EAC, Maurice, would have been here, but we are really trying to work together and learn from them. They are quite ahead on this compared to IGAD. And so far, so good. We are actually taking a lot of notes, taking a lot of lessons from them. And we are seeing there is quite good progress so far. So for the last 2 years, and I think Damon, we have met. This is not the first time we're meeting, right? Damon?
It's the third time.
Yes.
When you were in Uganda,
so I
and
think
then
we
Nairobi.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, and I think I've been going around also just, I don't want to say marketing, but doing lots of advocacy on the regional perspective of issues of child protection, child trafficking, and having discussion with the member states through different platforms. And as I said, picking up lessons from EAC, who we kind of, there are member states that we share. We overlap on some member states. So we are not starting from where we did not zero. We started from somewhere. And as I mentioned before, we also were not absolutely doing nothing. We are doing lots of work, actually. This is what I've gathered. But it's only that they are not really focused, they are not well coordinated. And if within ourselves we are not well coordinated, then there is no way we can support the member states to scale up their action. Child, we know that and from that this is something that you cannot, one nation cannot, or one member state cannot solve alone, because these are transboundary areas, that's are transboundary issues, Traffickers have big networks, they have big connections, they have they have good coordination, and this because they are motivated by the business, and it's not small business, it's quite lucrative business. And this is happening. This is I mean, they are scaling their efforts, and this is happening when governments, on the other hand, are not scaling their efforts to curb this this business, to cut down this menace, because it's a big menace. It is something that has been with us for a long time, but we are seeing that not quite huge progress being achieved in terms of bringing this down. And I just want to say, from the COVID-19 perspective, the people involved in this business shifted to COVID-19, to the coronavirus pandemic, and there is now very there is no, I would say there is no like tangible evidence, but we know through some anecdotal reports that these guys are upping their game. So this is something that cannot be solved by one member state, that I said before. This is something that has to be collaborative, lots of coordination between different countries. And one gap that we've seen in the IGAD region is that there is in how different member states prepare themselves, and this big variation comes in with lack of coordination, which is a very dangerous combination. I will give an example. For example, in Somalia, you find that the police is the Ministry of the equivalent Ministry of Immigration. While if you take Ethiopia and Kenya, if I'm right, you'll find that the police is in a different ministry, immigration is in a different ministry. So in terms of trafficking in Somalia, because the immigration folks there are actually seconded to work or at the airports, while for example in Kenya, and I believe also Uganda, if I'm not wrong, the police and the immigration are different, so they have to work together. And these variations are quite huge sometimes, and when you want to coordinate efforts across borders, you find that there are cracks, and it is through these cracks that that the traffickers really exploit and transact their business in terms of moving people from one country to another. What is happening is that different agencies in different countries don't speak to each other because, of course, they are not related. The police wants to speak to police on the other side. The immigration wants to conversations with migration people on the other side. There's no way the immigration will want to have a conversation with the police on the other side. So we have observed these variations And one of the things we are doing from the IGAD side of things is that to ensure that there is improved coordination, that member states are talking to each other, and that they're not just talking to each other, but coordinating, proper coordination to ensure that the loopholes that do exist in different member states are covered. You sometimes find that in one member state has really tightened their systems and the other one has not. So, the traffickers really have profiled these things. We now know that they have profiled these realities. They have profiled these the loopholes, and so they know what to do on one side, and they know what to do also on the other side. And in cases where I've just described, they are very tight. They have heightened their efforts in countries where the rules are really stringent, that they've really been curtailed, and they have loosened on the other side, where the other side of the border, where the rules are not that stringent. So they know what to do, they know what not to do in different sides of the borders. They know how to coordinate their efforts. As I said, these networks are not simple networks. These networks they're really complicated. They are well coordinated, and as I said before, this is happening. This is happening to our member states who don't coordinate quite well. So this is one big gap that we are taking up, and we have we are having quite a lot of progress along that line.
If I can just interject there and ask Shadrach.
Yes.
You're saying that you've taken note and you are engaging the states. Could you help us appreciate like what measures probably IGAD has put in place to help coordinate to address the exact gaps? We all totally agree with you. What you've mentioned, we see it as CSOs, as practitioners, as human rights networks. We all see this, but are there any practical things that we can walk away with today that we can be able to share and even follow up with our own governments in terms of the better methods of coordination that IGAD is trying to drive?
Yeah, I was going to begin by discussing about the some of the declarations that have been made. You remember there's been a Nairobi declaration. I don't want to go into that in details. There have been the Kampala declaration, and there is ongoing. There is the finalization of migration protocol, and in the protocol, which I think I've presented in detail in some of these meetings that I've been doing some advocacy in, we are trying to the systems across the member states, just to ensure that these loopholes are sealed, and make government accountable to the systems that they put in place. But now, back to your question. This is a big. It's a big endeavor. It's a huge endeavor, and we are taking it step by step. One of the steps we have done is that as IGAD, we have ensured that we're not working alone. A year ago, we have formed a network with EAC because we are working very closely with EAC, and we have formed a regional network. IGAD and EAC taking the lead. Then there are other partners, intergovernmental. We have UNICEF, we have UNHCR, and IOM also on board. And what we are trying here is to scale up efforts. And number one, we are trying to enlighten the government on the gaps that do exist so that they're able to fill them up. Some of the gaps already we have identified. For example, capacity building of different frontline workers in the border areas, including the police, including the immigration folks, including people who offer services to children, identify them across the borders. We've done a few trainings here and there through the partnerships that we have, just for them to sharpen their skills and their work in terms of children who are being and taking quick action around that. So that is our starting point, and we are happy that we are not doing this alone as IGAD. We're doing it with EAC and other partners. The other bit that we are following very closely, in addition to the migration protocol, we are currently coming up with a child rights, child protection policy and strategy, IGAD one. For a long time, IGAD does not have had this on board. And we are trying to put this in terms of putting down on paper policies and strategies that will put our member states accountable to some state-of-the-art measures, that will protect children, including children on the move. So,
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
thank you very much. I definitely am going to come back to you. You talk about, I'm interested in engaging a little more in some of the declarations that you have mentioned, the Nairobi Declaration, the Kampala Declaration, and probably as I come back to you, Shadrach, one of the questions that I am seeing on in the chat, or somebody sent to me privately, is what exactly how are we exactly following up on these declarations? We make the declarations are made, then what next? What happens? How do we follow up that even the different people can be able to implement? I had Honorable Dora, and she has again disappeared. Oh my. Honorable Dora, when you come back, I would really appreciate. But there is still a question. There's still a question that Musa comes to you, and also Shadrach, you can also respond to this question. And the question is from Ruth. Ruth asks and says, Musa, can you please elaborate on how the committee is advocating for the harmonization of the policies and legislation and practice in regards to the issue around child trafficking? Are you having any engagements in that? Is there something specific?
Thank you for the question, Ruth. It's very enlightening. I think it's an opportunity for me to get into much detail about what I just rushed through. Thanks, Ruth. So, like I mentioned, the mandate of the committee is for the promotion, protection of children's rights. And one of the key things that we do there, in fact, the functions of the committee will then be fourfold. So I'm taking time to explain the scope of the functioning of the committee so that we can measure our expectation on the basis of the statutory mandate of it. The promotion of children's rights is where ideally we are hoping that all member states would ratify the charter, and East Africa is some of the member states that are yet to ratify the charter. And perhaps in the outcome statement or outcome document of this meeting, you could consider lobbying those respective countries, such as Somalia, such as South Sudan, to ratify the charter. That's one. Because ratifying the charter comes with it certain benefits, since the charter provides a relatively higher threshold on child protection, especially concerning the issue in question. So linked to this promotional mandate, we have been working with regional economic communities, and they've developed joint action plans on what the regional economic communities should be doing with ourselves. And in almost all the joint action plans, we are proposing that they come up with a regional instrument for children. EAC, I'm glad, is already a child rights policy. We are aware that SADC is working on a protocol for children. We are aware also that ECOWAS is a policy for children. So we're trying to make sure that at regional level, at the regional economic blocks level, there is a deliberate response to transnational child rights violations, to which child trafficking is one. So these regional action plans, which we are developing in collaboration with REX, are serving as a way of trying to make sure that there is a standardized way within regions and across regions of dealing with transnational child rights violations. And part of the issue, as Malath Ocheng has asked, is on addressing the pertinent issue of data. How do we document this data when our definitions of concepts are different? So we are trying also to make sure through these regional action plans to make sure that we standardize our conceptual understanding of issues, our conceptual understanding of definitions, etc. So this is key. But I think I'll be the first one to criticize that there can be more we can do to accelerate the implementation of these joint action plans. Not much has been happening in that regard, partly because of funding. So that's on the promotional aspect of children's rights. One of the other functions of the committee is the monitoring of children's rights. And the key aspect that we use here is state part and complementary reporting on the state of children's rights periodically. And some of the countries here have been doing a good job in making sure that they submit their state party and complementary reports on time. Others are yet to improve. Yeah, I see Damon smiling. So I think this is important because if we can flag out the issue of trafficking in the concluding observations and recommendations that we give to state parties, it becomes a basis for accountability and a handle for civil society and other accountability mechanisms at national level, such as NHRIs, to follow through the recommendations when they are doing the advocacy work, to make sure that the advocacy plans are informed by the concluding observations and recommendations that we would have come up with. The other function, as I conclude, of the committee is the interpretive function, to interpret the provisions of the African Charter and the right on the rights and welfare of the child. By this, we usually produce general comments elucidating on certain provisions of the Charter which may be ambiguous to state parties. And we are yet to develop a general comment on child trafficking. Perhaps one of the action points from this conference could be a lobbying or a request by the stakeholders here for the committee to develop a general comment on child trafficking, addressing the nuances that we are finding and the transnationality of the child rights violations therein. Suffice also to note that 2 years ago, the committee conducted a research on child migration, which flagged out child trafficking as one of the issues that need to be addressed. So I can share that report with colleagues here for their reading, and also finding action points that were prioritized at a continental level in addressing the issues of child trafficking. But I think these are the tools that are to our disposal to addressing issues of child trafficking. And under the protection mandate, the last one, under the protection mandate, I think there are legal scholars here. They can submit cases to us. They can submit complaints, yes, about how member states are abrogating their responsibility on children. So when they submit the cases, I think Kenya is very familiar with this because of the Nubian case, which the committee dealt with a few years ago, and that can be done still on issues of trafficking, and perhaps that we can establish a jurisprudence in issues of child trafficking when it's now a transnational child rights violation. So I hope Ruth, I've done justice to your question. In view of the limited scope of the mandate of the committee, its promotional, protection, monitoring, and interpretive function. I think I've.
Thank you. I think you've done great. I would have wanted to hear something else in the conversation, but yeah. I think you have given us guidance on exactly what the mandate for the committee is, and also guidance on how we can engage with the committee. I think we need to see how to work and also work within those means. Honorable Dora Biamkama is with us. I do not want to lose her. I know she has been listening. Honorable Dora was behind the Trafficking in Persons Act in Uganda, ensuring that we have an act in Uganda. Plus, then she went to Ayala and served her 2 terms in Ayala. And while at Ayala, she was the mover of the current bill that is still on the floor of Parliament. And as I continue introducing her, she has disappeared. We will wait for her to come back on, but when Honorable Dora comes back, we are going to hear from her perspective, engagement at ESC, how exactly the law can play, and also the counter-trafficking law can play, and also her thoughts on other policies and laws and guidelines that we can enforce in litigation and all these purposes. I had in the earlier on presentation, there were talks on what has happened when the countries collaborate. We had Council Rachel from ODPP's office in Uganda share that there is the mutual assistance pulled out from the Commonwealth agreement under the Commonwealth for the nations to collaborate and work together to give mutual assistance to each other. And I think IGAD, Shadrach, if I can ask you the question, is it possible for IGAD to also have protocols that can drive us to such cases where immediate victim assistance, generally the gaps that have been spoken about, immediate assistance in terms of justice. We have talked about the access of the victims or the survivors coming back to testify, the different governments supporting so that we can get prosecution happen at all levels, whether it is in Kenya, whether it is in Uganda, Tanzania, Southern Sudan, and Rwanda, Burundi. How do we get the regional bodies to buy in and have this mutual? Can we have such kind of mutual assistance as agreed by Commonwealth, as agreed by IGAD, member states of IGAD? What are your thoughts on that, Shadrach?
Yes, thank you, Damian, because I was having another meeting in the next 5 minutes. So, hello? Can you hear me?
Hear you. Yes,
okay.
We can hear you.
Yeah. In addition to that, there was a question that was asked on how do we make member states accountable to some of these declarations that we do facilitate and member states sign to. Now, I want to state first of all, sometimes there's a lot of over expectation in what member states can do. Number one, member states don't have the capability of prosecuting, and we also do not police. The regional organization, most regional organizations, including IGAD, let me talk for IGAD, do not have the capability of prosecuting and bringing to book people who violate children's rights and other atrocities. We also don't police the member states. We know that member states have their own sovereignty, and our work really is to coordinate their efforts, to facilitate discussions, useful discussions, and to add value on the efforts that they're putting in. And adding value is to do what they can't, or to achieve what they can't do alone. So we support them. We have specific projects or programs that do cover up the regional gaps, not individual member state gaps, but regional gaps. So member states are free and have the sovereignty to do what they want to do according to their internal policies, internal framework of doing things, internal strategies. But we want to put them accountable to some of the regional issues that are upcoming. And I would say, for example, the Nairobi Declaration, the Kampala Declaration, what happens in this declaration is that we want member states to, or we facilitate member states time to time to come together and review their commitment and be accountable to what they are doing based on this declaration. It's not policing. It is facilitating discussion. It is facilitating accountability among themselves. It is facilitating learning lessons as far as these declarations are concerned. So we have realized that member states who pick up this declaration very fast, so that those, we want to call them the fast movers, and then we also want to call the others who go so slow or on the extreme end, really do very little about these declarations. So in different facets of this declaration, you'll find there are member states who are really taking those tenets forward, while others are lagging behind. But our role then is to ensure that those who are lagging behind, then can learn important lessons from those who are going quite fast, and that they can take the challenge, and they can improve also on their accountability, just as maybe their neighboring the neighboring member state, as they can see when they do report, they can see when they do demonstrate results, and see that yes, across the border. This is what they're doing. They're having quite good progress. And also, we also need to do that. There are several things that we need to change. And this is possible because our neighbors are doing it. And they do learn from each other. So it is not a matter of really policing, but it's a matter of bringing discussions on board, facilitating discussion, sharing lessons, and being accountable to each other. We have developed a method of working now as a last point, where we are now bringing, I don't know how we want to call them, we are bringing the NGO, the civil society. Right now we are having deep conversation and deep involvement of Save the Children. We are now bringing on board the East African Child Rights, who have invited me or invited IGAD to this discussion. So we are having quite a number of them, apart from those two. We know that governments normally are not very receptive to some of these organizations, some of these networks that are available regionally or in country. We want to actively facilitate discussion even among member states and the NGO fraternity, the civil society, to ensure that, that the efforts that are made on that end by the civil society, by the NGO, don't go to waste. We are aware that you guys, including Damon and the team, doing a lot of work, but if this work is not streamlined in the government system, if the government do not know what these civil societies are doing, they don't know important lessons that are being learned from that end. They do not know about data that is being collected by these folks. Then I don't think there's going to be much progress. Thank you very much, my colleague from AU, talking about data. A lot of data is lying outside the government, and we need to bring this into the government focus so that they can take action. And particularly even at the time of COVID, where we know that violations of children's rights has been heightened. Domestic violence is on the rise. Children are suffering. Trafficking is probably increased, but we don't have tangible data on this. And we are now facilitating dialogue, facilitating discussions among government and civil society to ensure that there is also proper coordination and collaboration between the two groups. Thank you very much.
For sparing time and being with us in the conversation and giving us the time. I want to. There's a question here from Veronica to Musa. I think you can take this question, and probably if Honorable Dora manages to come on, we can also engage with her. The question is, what opportunities are there for using the regional courts? This is from Veronica, of using the regional courts in supporting counter-trafficking in persons efforts in the region. By any chance, do you know any case studies has worked? We can base on. Hello.
Hello,
I don't know if
Damon?
Hello.
Oh well, so
go ahead, Musa.
My honest answer is that this is beyond my purview. I do not mind doing research to find if there are any cases that have been dealt with at our regional courts, but I'm sure amongst the colleagues who are part of this meeting, there might be someone with insight on using the other regional mechanisms in addressing child trafficking, encountering trafficking, as Veronica puts it. But I'm not aware of any such initiative because I'm answering off the cuff without having done adequate research. So perhaps I can do my research and give you a consolidated answer tomorrow that is written, which you can then share with all the participants of this meeting. Would that suffice? Otherwise, I may not give you correct or adequate information.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. You have said it well. Honorable Dora, if you can come on, and then I can give you opportunity now to speak to us. We have been patient with Honorable Dora has been patient with us. She was supposed to give the opening keynote address, and I do not want us to miss out on listening on this important bill that many of us actually need and would be using if it was in place. Any chance, Honorable Dora? Jenny, can you advise me on if Honorable Dora will still make it? Honorable Dora, or you could type your comment in the box, and then I can be able to read it out for members. I don't know. It will not do justice. I know she's hearing us, but connecting is another thing. You could also connect and take off your camera. You could connect and take off your camera, and then we'll have Honorable Dora give her keynote and comments and feedback on what has been said, and then finally we'll close this e-conference. Okay, is there anyone else who has a question or comment that
Damon.
would want to share?
We are trying to get on Madame Dora to join in. So she's having internet challenges, but she's really, really trying. She's online, she can hear, she can follow the conversation. The only problem is when she comes in on the video, she's unable to talk. So right now I'm working with her to see if she can be able to join in, because you can see she comes in and then she leaves, she comes in and she leaves. I think the challenge is with the internet. So I don't know. So let's just give her a few minutes and we see if she can be able to join in. Yeah, I think so. Madame Dora,
maybe if she joins in and she doesn't activate the camera.
You can hear. So just when you're joining in, just switch off your camera. We see if it's going to work.
Musa, I want to give you a chance to give any remarks.
Can you hear me?
Honorable Dora is on. I don't want us to miss her. Honorable Dora, please go ahead.
Okay, no problem. Can you see me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can see you. Please switch off your camera. Just use the internet off.
Okay, I'm very delighted to be part of you, and I'll make it brief because most of the areas have been covered, and I'm really delighted to be part of this group of people who are very passionate about the same things that I am on. Let me just talk about the background. First of all, I worked with the East African community for 10 years. I'm currently working with the Great Lakes region, training facility on sexual and gender-based violence. So this is what I do every day for the last maybe more than 20 years of my life. But having said that, I just wanted to talk on a more practical angle. When you consider, for example, the East African community, and I agree with Shadrach and others who have talked about the use of regional angle, I think we need to find a way of making the issue of trafficking
Oh my God, we have lost her again. Honorable Dora, if you can join and then you take off the camera, you switch, don't join with the camera. I mean, if you join and then take off the camera, it might work better. So members, as we wait for Honorable Dora to conclude, I just want to ask and pose a question to come in and share with us and give us her probably concluding, our concluding remarks here. I just want to give us an opportunity in the chat box. Just go into the chat box and just tell us what would be the key things that we should walk away with from this meeting. What for you as an individual, as a child rights activist, as a human rights activist, as a practitioner in terms of ODPP, wherever you have come from, whichever profession you're doing. Just go into our chat box right now and just quickly type, even if it is one word, you don't have to write a full sentence. Just type and give us one comment of what you're walking away with as key issues and key areas of focus we should have, we should walk away with from this conference. Right from 1 p.m. to now 5 coming to 6 o'clock, what are those key things? Just quickly write them down and I will read a few of them as they come in before we can be able to share with you. I think Frasha is going to be joining me shortly to give us the key highlights that we will walk away with and will add in what you put here. So just quickly go to the chat box. I'm waiting to see those chats right now. I'm waiting to see those key deliverables, those key things that you want us to we walk away with today from the conversation. Somebody has said, Michelle says, that we should intentionally seek justice for the victims of trafficking of trafficking. And that's something very key. Seek justice for the victims intentionally. Julian says that we need regional lobbying and advocacy. And this regional lobbying and advocacy can only be done at regional level. It can be done as a region. We need to do it as East Africa. We need to come together as CSOs and work it out. You're very right, Julian. We need to do the regional lobbying. It can't be just one country. We need to rally all the East African countries. Yes, come on, let's keep them coming. I love the two that have already come through. I'm enjoying seeing them. Let's keep them coming. Let's just keep them coming, please. I'm waiting for the next one. Ruth Juliet says that we should stop treating victims of human trafficking as perpetrators, and this is very key. How do we save them from the system? Because once they get into the system and are recorded, my God, their name is tainted, yet they are victims. We need to have victim identification, separate the perpetrators from those who are victims. Thank you, Juliet. That is very key. That is very, very key for us to walk away with. At the regional level, victim assistance, identify the victim, give support to the victim. Veronica says that we need partnerships between the state and the non-state actors. We can't do this. We can't fight alone. We need each other. We need each other. Partnerships is key. And one of the other P's under the trafficking in persons is partnership. And I want to invite us that next week we shall be covering the last P, which is partnership. And you don't want to miss that. Joyce says the key highlight is need for that there is need for continuous feedback between the partner states. We need to give feedback to Musa, the committee. We need the committees to continue engaging the member states in all this discussion. Thank you, Joyce. Rosalind says that countries are independent, but there should be a lot of coordination amongst the bodies of the different countries. We need to find a way of rallying the different recs and getting them to coordinate and speak this voice. And that's what we're doing today, Rosalind. Thank you. Very key. Although they're independent, we still need to find ways of holding them accountable. Malath says, Malatho Cheng says, there should be deliberate efforts to establish synchronizing support for victims of trafficking within the East African region. I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. What are those minimum standard operation should we have as member states when it comes to East Africa? And good enough, unfortunately, we have not had Honorable Dora, and when she comes in, she'll probably tell us, but I know that there is an attempt in the Counter Trafficking in Persons Bill to try and address something in this respect. But I agree with you. There needs to be a cut across, not to say that you're not a Ugandan, you're not a Kenyan, so we are not going to give you the assistance. You're not a Ugandan, so we're not going to give you assistance. We need to have a standard operating procedure when it comes to giving victims of assistance to victims or support services to victims of trafficking. Thank you very much, Malath. Anyone else? I love these comments. I love these comments. Evan says that we need to relook at our regional laws more keenly and be responsive and preventive. Thank you very much, Evans. I agree with you. Our laws need to be more protective, more preventive than and responsive than just words to paint a good picture of this is a good law. We need action-rated laws. What that means, I don't know. I am not a lawyer. Anyone else? Yes, Honorable Dora, continue.
Hello.
You can go ahead. Please go ahead.
Honorable
Dora, we can hear you. Please stop, we can hear you.
Hello. Hi. I talk. Oh, I can go ahead and talk? Where do I begin? At the beginning?
No, wherever, I think continue, so just in case it goes off again.
Okay. I was just sharing, and I'm sorry I went off. I wanted to share with you the reason why we thought that having a law at the East African community would be beneficial in this quest to counter trafficking in persons. First and foremost, when we carried out research on the different legal regime in the different countries, you'll find that you'll have different penalties. And when you have different penalties, this to some extent may encourage cross-border crime, in that if the penalty, for example, in Uganda is 10 years for the capital offense, and it is 30 years in Kenya, then people may find it easier maybe to cross over and do trafficking in Uganda. So under Article 126 of the Treaty for the East African Community, there is provision for harmonization of laws. So this is one of the areas, principles which encouraged us to come up with this law. The other aspect that we wanted to harmonize on was on the messaging, because the causes of trafficking in persons are similar in most of our countries. We thought it is very important that we work together on the issue of messaging, as well as addressing the causes. These causes, of course, keep on changing and they vary. But most importantly, provision of information is very important. And then thirdly, looking at the area of peace and security under Article 124 of the treaty, you'll find that there's provision for mutual assistance, especially in respect to cross-border crimes. So we felt that it was important that we also put it in an East African law and ensure that there's sharing of information and that there's cooperation and support in this area. Because apart from using extradition and other extraterritorial means, which may actually be long-winded, like the Ugandan lady said that they have to apply to the Attorney General, we felt that as an East African community, which has now a common external tariff, and even at the African Union level, where we are also gunning for free movement of persons, that it would be very important for us to have some kind of standard operating procedures where people can freely move and goods can freely move as is envisaged under the AU Agenda 2063 and under the other recs. So, and then finally, of course, when we talk about trade in goods, it's not far-fetched, for example, to also consider that some of these goods could be goods which are like from trafficked persons, whether it's body organs or other goods. And indeed, when you look at one of the laws of the East African community, you'll find that we have included that aspect in persons to be able to address the issue of goods, so that the goods which are traded in are not illegal, such as body parts or any other parts. Hello?
Yes or no? Hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you. Honorable. Yes, yes.
You lost me again.
No, you go on because you can show you on the screen, so you don't have to hold the phone. Go on.
Okay, so I don't know what you heard or you didn't hear. I'm sorry, but basically, in conclusion,
Honorable, we can hear you.
We can hear you everything, so just
in conclusion,
from the beginning you are very okay. So just go on and talk.
Okay, let me conclude.
Finish.
Let me conclude. In conclusion, I think, okay, apart from what I've heard, and I do agree with what you have to say, is that having a discussion on trafficking in persons at this regional body, which has capacity to make laws, will continue to ensure that this issue is prioritized. Secondly, is the issue of coordinated action. I think we are having coordinated action at different levels. If, for example, we had even had the police as part of our discussion, they would have told us how they are being trained on this issue, as well as people who work in immigration. So it's very important that we continue with coordinated action, especially even with the CSOs, which are able to bring out the data and information which we can use in advocacy. And then there are other issues, for example, if you're going to do prosecute, the recovery centers, laws for witness protection, victim protection, laws on legal aid, even medical aid, This is very, very important. I think the other area which I wanted to highlight is the externalization of labor, which we need to look out for, because if it's not handled very well, this could also be another loophole which can be used for trafficking in persons. It's not illegal to externalize labor, but it's very important that we take note of what's happening and we're able to ensure that our people, human rights are protected, especially for the children and even the adults. And then finally, I want to talk about the issue of causes. We could work on this front, but if we do not look at the causes and we do not communicate effectively to the people on what's happening and what's bound to happen, then whatever we do may come to naught, because we shall keep on mopping and the water will keep on flowing. So it's very important that we keep on researching and finding out new trends and finding out why and how best we can be able to counter trafficking in persons. So basically, I think this is a very good avenue. It's a very good opening, and we have all the support that we can. I think at the East African community level, in the Great Lakes region, we have the instruments, and I believe that we'll be able to make progress. I'd like to conclude by the information that we get from the State Department, the U.S. State Department. This is sometimes is very good information. I think it's the best source of information we have so far, and I think it's important that we continue to support this particular angle so that we are able to keep abreast with what's happening. Sometimes countries are not very happy with the information, but the point is that if they're not happy, then they should be able to correct it, and we should use this mechanism to be able to highlight, name and shame if need be, so that we can make progress. I thank you, and I'm sorry if I've repeated myself.
Thank you, Honorable Dora.
I'm delighted to be part of this. Thank you again.
I think Honorable Dora gives us a good perspective to show us the value of having that. We have to conclude, and I am going to just ask Musa in 1 minute to say something in conclusion. Musa, 1 minute, concluding remark.
Thank you for this. Just to appreciate the organizers for bringing in so many stakeholders to discuss this important issue. I think reminding ourselves that at the core of it is to ensure dignity for all children on the continent. And it's really a welcome initiative. In my conclusion, I'll be saying, let's make sure, like Honorable has said, that we have solid normative standards that we are adhering to when we are doing our advocacy work, and strengthen the collaboration within the REC and across REC, and invest in collection of data that is standardized and that is disaggregated to find the issues of children clearly, and also to strengthen the collaboration of inter-country institutions. I think there have been some great lessons that have been shared since then. Perhaps one of the initiatives that this project can do is to glean good practices on dealing with issues of child trafficking and document these to share with other regions and share with other countries. I think gleaning these good practices can go a long way. For example, the collaboration that is happening, the police chiefs platform that was being talked about earlier, or the prosecutors platforms that are happening, and some of these informal mechanisms to be institutionalized to be part of the robust child protection architecture of the continent. I think that's a good way to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Musa, for closing, for your closing remarks. And I just want to mention and tell everyone that we have come to the end of this conference, and all I can say is that we have had lengthy conversations We have had a lot to do to talk about prosecution. We have to share where the gaps are, the opportunities that we have. One of the key things that, as the organizers and that I'm hearing that needs to come out, I have had continuously harmonization of laws, bringing policies together, protocols, follow-up of the protocols. How do we continue engaging the government? I just want to mention that as Honorable Dora has given her experience, coming up with the law is one thing, and then us following up the states as Dr. Musa and Shadrach have shared, coming up with all this is necessary, but we need to continue follow up at our own point. So I want to just encourage us that as much as we are excited that we have had this conversation, there is still a lot that needs to be done. There are still very many people that we need to work with. I just want to point out that even as we're getting out of this COVID situation, Kenya opens their borders come August. Uganda, our borders are still closed. In Tanzania, the borders were never closed. And South Sudan, I actually don't know if the borders were closed or open. But whatever the case might be, all these other countries that with the borders, Rwanda, Burundi, that are a part of the East African community, we know very well that once these borders are opened, then we're going to see an increase of trafficking in persons. How do we work with also the labor externalization to ensure that they service and they give the right guidance to the clients that they have? How do we also ensure that we also have good examples of even those labor or companies that are actually breaking the law? They are closed one day and the next day they open in another town, they open on another street. How can we ensure that those perpetrators are not let go and are actually brought to book? There was a question that somebody asked here, that they hype, some of these owners of these companies are hype. These are key elements we need to continue having conversations on as members of the civil society, the government, and all other members. We have seen all your comments, we have received all your way forwards, and we will continue to ensure that we follow through and capture each and everything. From the beginning of July, we've been having conversations on trafficking, and like Musa gave guidance, we have hello, can you hear me? Musa?
Go ahead, Demon.
I can hear you.
Musa, can you hear me?
Yes.
Musa, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Demon.
Okay, great. I was saying that we have given guidance. We have been having conversations on trafficking in persons right from the first protection, prosecution today, and next week we are going to talk about partnership. At the end, we hope to come out with a joint communique as East Africans, and we want to be able to share with the EALA and also the East African community, the leaders, our heads of state, for them to wake up and address this issue, collaborate together. All these things that we have highlighted as our take homes. So ladies and gentlemen, let's keep the fight going. Let's continue protecting the children of our countries and also the other victims, the mothers, the sisters of these children that we keep on talking about. Thank you very much for staying with us. We want to thank very much Stop the Traffic, Mutoto News for putting this together, East Africa Child Rights Network for ensuring that we are together, the whole prosecution team. We had a team behind organizing the whole of today. All the moderators for the day, thank you very much. And our speakers for the day, we had a wealth of knowledge that we shared today. Thank you all very much. The struggle continues until we ensure our children, our families are protected. Thank you very much, everyone. Damon Wamara, on behalf of the organizing team, we're signing out. See you next week for our last webinar. God bless you all.
Please give us feedback at the end of the meeting. We want to know how we did. Thank you so much, guys.
That's